Yeah. No, completely agree. But so we were talking, and I was saying that I don't know. I think it's kind of reflecting on Postman and the technological revolution we've gone through as a species the last 100 years or so. I'm increasingly open, maybe even convinced that this state is very unnatural, and I'm not sure we can be accommodated to it without something like transhumanism, like what Elon Musk wants to do. I don't think we're built by God to be connected to virtually anybody at virtually any time. Especially with a globalized world where there are no time zones because of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very unnatural. I think it's something we have to. It's gravely serious because Saint Francis de Sales says in Introduction to the Devout Life, we should do absolutely everything we can to maintain our spiritual peace. And so if X or Facebook or Instagram or avoiding Babylon is causing you to lose your spiritual peace, stop. And guess what? We don't all have to be equally good at everything. So anyway, I hope all of us think about this more because I forget what it's called, the Apple device, the glasses thing, the virtual reality thing. Apple goggles. I'm not going to do that. That's a red line for me.
Yeah, but Josh, you say that's your line, right? And we're all like, I'm not getting the chip in my head, but we carry the stupid thing around with us everywhere, right?
Well, I've put all sorts of rules in place for myself with my phone. So, and I need to get better at it sometimes. Absolutely. Yeah. But so far it's been working pretty well. And again, I love to read. So most of my day I actually do spend reading, writing, and researching. But regardless of where different people are, I've got lots of improvement to make. Regardless of where people are, one of the points Postman made was that he's not a Luddite, which is, I'm forgetting the first name of the guy, but an English guy who was basically saying technological advancement is itself.
Ned Ludd.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, we don't know if he was a real person. He might just be an amalgamation. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
But the point being that he's not a Luddite, meaning he's not saying that technological advancement is bad per se, but he does say we need to be aware of how a technological advancement changes us. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that many people we just kind of assume that an advancement in technology is automatically good or cool, whatever. So for me, this goggle thing, absolute red line. I think we as a species are far too disconnected from reality as it is. And I think that goggle thing will make it infinitely worse. And so anyway, I think we all need to be thinking about these things. And
with every technology that comes, you lose something too, right? Even as something as simple as the lighter. Like we used to know how to start a fire with a stick, and then all of a sudden somebody invents the lighter, and now that knowledge of how to do that thing is gone, right? We used to, before GPS, I used to have the entire 5 boroughs of New York City in my head because I had to drive location to location and I used the road map and I used to have to plot my route. Now that we have GPS, I forgot how to get places that I've been 150 times. It's a really strange thing. As these new technologies are coming in, we're losing something along the way every single time.
Which is why medieval students would remember whole books of scripture. But we have Google search, and the incentive structure of there's many wonderful things about Google search, but one of the things we do lose is retention.
Well, even when I find that I'm arguing with somebody about scripture online, I know I don't have to actually know what verse and what book, chapter, and verse it is because I can just Google a few words of the phrase I remember, and that'll bring it up, and then I can punch it out like that. Where I used to remember, it's like, okay, if you want to get to the obedience of faith, it's Romans 8:17. Like I just know that because I just looked that one up, but because I was in an argument with somebody. But I used to know these things well by heart, And even what you were talking about with us in this global world like that, it used to be where if you were having an issue in a place, you could take your family and move somewhere else, and that issue would go away. Where you can't even move to the middle of the country and escape some of the crap that's going on now. You see in the Midwest, in the heartland of America, these kids are being pumped with this ideology, and you have kids that are actually identifying on that rainbow spectrum, and they're in the Midwest that's supposed to be the heartland of America, where you're not near the stuff in the cities, and it's just crazy where we are right now.
Yeah, Paul, you're right. And it may be a while before you hear me say that again, but I'm kidding. But I completely agree with you. Yeah, about the red line.
So what do you think? What are you saying that you don't think it's possible without some kind of integration with with technology? Like you think
I
that's
don't think
inevitable?
that I don't think we as a species can keep up with this trend line without transhumanism. So that's my burgeoning conviction. I'm not like setting my flag there, and I'm very much against transhumanism. I mean, I was raised on Star Trek. We hate the Borg. they're, they're the worst enemy ever, but they're the most dehumanizing. But yeah, I don't think it works without. We're not meant to be this guy. And frankly, and I'd love to hear Trent's thoughts on this in particular. It's led to deeply disordered spiritualities when it comes to church politics. You know, because as you and we've talked about, most people wouldn't have known who the Pope was, who the cardinals were. Like most Catholics through most of history wouldn't hear about almost any of it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be aware of things, but yeah.
You get stuck in a rage cycle.
Yeah.
And I think anger, it's an addictive emotion. I mean, anger is a good emotion when there's an injustice. Like anger spurs us to do something. So it's no wonder it gives us a little dopamine hit to encourage us to want to do something that's difficult. But it's just so easy for it to become manipulated or distorted or abused. So yeah, that's why I'm really... I'm always concerned. That's why, like, I appreciate, like, Josh, what you're doing with apologetics and what you guys are doing on Avoiding Babylon. Like, I do think people are getting a fatigue, hopefully, of Catholic media being tabloid. Like, hey, here's the latest bad thing that's happened. I mean, I think that got a lot of steam. That felt like it picked up a lot. I don't know, like 2017,
2017. It was the Summer of Shame. Summer of Shame, it picked up and everybody went crazy with it. And, you know, a lot of new guys jumped in the field and it was like, it really did.
Well, like for a while, we had like Church Militant, for example, although before that it was Real Catholic TV. Then they had changed the name. And then like, but for a while it was just like, you know, well, I just remember, I'm sure if you were a young Catholic back in like the late 90s, for you, like, sedevacantism was just like, oh yeah, I heard this. I think there's a Pope
I
in
never even
Kansas or
heard of
something.
it. Trent, I never heard of the society. I never heard of sedevacantism. I never heard of the Latin Mass until Summorum Pontificum, I think.
Yeah. But even like in the mid, like the 2000s, if there were people that were talking about bad stuff going on in the church, it was like, okay, man, whatever. But then through the constant repetition of the cycle and just pushing it out there, people, and also through the platform development, through the change of the democratization of media, where instead of just, hey, you've got 3 Catholic magazines and EWTN, anybody's got a channel, and if you can create salacious content, you'll get people. It creates that kind of negative feedback loop to always try to push people's dopamine receptors and their buttons. But I think also
it creates think about the incentive structure. You claim that you don't want these things to happen in the church, but every time something bad happens, it's kind of good for your channel. And it's like, oh man, the church is falling apart, but I'm being successful, because it's a very warped incentive structure where like trying to find a balance where like you don't harp on that stuff and just kind of have interesting conversations is very difficult, man. I mean, it's part of like I caught a couple of people said to me, like, they accused me of kissing your ass last time you came on.
Nice.
And I'm like, if you guys think I'm gonna have somebody on and have like this adversarial conversation with them, like, you guys are missing what we're doing here. Like, that's just not. I'm not gonna have somebody come on and try to sandbag them. And
he only does that with co-sleeping. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a good sign that Rob's bringing up co-sleeping. That makes me feel. That makes me feel it's truly resolved. The co-sleeping.
Oh, it's resolved. Yeah.
Long ago.
But yeah, it's this weird thing where it just creates this really warped incentive structure. Like, I was joking around before the last Dignitatis Infinita came out. Like, before it came out, I was like, this is like the Catholic podcaster's wet dream, right? It's like, you guys are getting yourselves all work. Oh man, they're going to come out with something on human dignity and everybody's getting all excited. It's like, that's such a warped way to see the church, the magisterium, everything. And there is something to be said about having a hermeneutic of suspicion. I mean, you know, to use Michael Lofton's phrase, there's something warped about having that, where you don't want to be waiting for the next mistake the church makes.
Well, that's why what's funny is like for myself, like what I've been focusing on in my work, like, I mean, I talked a little bit about stuff going on in the church, like in 2018, 2019, back when Council of Trent was just an audio podcast. But then eventually I settled more into, I just really want to focus on showing the faith is true and just really focusing on things not a lot of other people are doing. So, you know, so when it comes to a lot of these other issues that come up, like Trent, what are you going to say about traditionis custodias? Like, I don't really feel like saying anything on my, people don't need to know my opinion. Or fiducia supplicans, I was planning not to say anything about that because I'm like, look, a ton of people are. But then like Ben Shapiro like reached out to me and was like, hey, you want to come on the show and talk about it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd rather have someone come on who's not going to like completely throw Pope Francis under the bus or something like that, you know. But or like Dignitatis, I was like, I'll wait. I'll see if there's something like I'll wait to see if like there's people are banging on my door saying, please say something.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm like, I don't need to really.
Well, I've noticed like a lot of. Okay, so I saw this today with Mike Lewis accusing. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sachin Rose, or is that am I pronouncing
Sachin Joe? You mean
Sachin Joe? Okay, I'm terrible with
The
this
Indian
stuff.
content creator.
yes?
Yeah. So Mike Lewis was like,
Good guy.
you've been posting things about John Paul II and Benedict XVI. You haven't said anything about Francis. Do you even think he's a valid pope anymore? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Wow.
What? Like now not saying something positive about Francis implies that you're like crypto schismatic or something. It's a very weird thing going on where even to be silent and not be pro Francis, you're gonna get accusations from someone from somewhere at some point. That's a lot, you know, the whole point of what I was saying to Josh.
Well, it's you create this polarization where it's like, as long as they're on my team, then they're great. And if you don't support the team, it's a distorted view of the world. It's like seeing Austin Ivere today saying like, oh, we need to, he said we need to keep Rupnick's art up, and you can't hold the art. You can't blame the art for the artist. And I'm like, that's insanity. That's even at least on the left, they're just like, that's crazy talk. But it's because he's on your team. Yeah. Whereas like, I know that there are other people that if there's, I'm sure Ivere would say that if it was a conservative person or a conservative media thing, and to say there was scandal involved, oh, take it all down. The only reason he would say that is because Rupnick's on the team. And I'm like, it's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I see that in all corners too, man. It's
the right, the trads will do the same thing as long as but hey, they're trad, we can't say anything bad about them. Like, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. All right, I want to make sure I get a plug in for Eternal Christendom and Council of Trent. So Josh, what do you have going on? And then we're going over to locals and we're going to discuss Fuentes, because I know everybody wants us to discuss Fuentes, and we're going to actually talk about the Groypers, and we're going to talk about Fuentes, because I probably have some things that I agree a little more. A couple of the points Nick made in his response to you that I was like, all right, that's a fair point. So we're going to go over to locals. We're going to discuss Fuentes, Christ the King, maybe Lila Rose a little bit. Gonna be all the juicy stuff over there that you guys got to pay for to come and see. But Josh, what's going on with Eternal Christendom? Do you have anything lined up coming up that you can promote, or is just the one podcast?
Yeah, people just want to go to eternalchristendom.com. We just announced like a month ago, and I just posted the first podcast as kind of a prologue, just explaining the backstory. But no, essentially the goal is kind of responding to this Postman reality that we're living in, of electronic media kind of dumbing things down and making the most digital and visual generation in history. You know, all this stuff is the stuff that built our civilization. It's the stuff that formed saints, sages, and statesmen. And it built the civilization that all of us in varying degrees and in various ways love and want to preserve. Unfortunately, though, virtually all these books are just text on a page, which is fine for me. I'm a nerd, and I'm sure there's some nerds on this stream and in the comments. But for most people, especially these days, that's not going to work for three basic reasons. One, hyper digital. Two, hyper visual. And three, nobody today, they're cultural orphans. So there's no context. I mean, I have multiple versions of these classics where there's virtually no context provided for anything. And it's totally unacceptable. And so we basically want to take these things and not only make them the most beautiful, explanatory, deep books ever made, but we want to basically use these things to QR code every chapter into a whole digital universe where you can be, when you're reading something, a letter of St. Ignatius of Antioch, you can be connected to a Trent Horn video on the Eucharist, or a Scott Hahn documentary on this, or you can be watching a trailer. Like, I want to get filmmakers to do Hollywood level trailers about St. Ignatius of Antioch or about his martyrdom. There's so many tools we have today.
So interesting, man. Like, even
to bring the physical and the digital together to reach a highly digital visual generation.
Well, because even like I was saying before, like, I could do audiobooks and stuff. Like, I'm so excited to be able to drive in my car and just click a link to listen to something about, like, you got to realize people's attention spans are kind of wired towards this medium now. So I'm really happy you're doing that, man.
Yeah. Well, people don't know, there's almost no version of the church fathers that there. No, not there's almost no, there is no version. So imagine if there was a version of the church fathers. The first one we're going to do is St. Ignatius of Antioch's letters. So, it's 7 letters, and we're going to make it gorgeous. I have a wonderful illustrator friend. He's actually Protestant, but through this whole process, he's become way more open to the Catholic faith. It's been really interesting. But we want to use him. My friend Beretus Catholic, Chris Lewis. We want to use him to create highly symbolic catechetical art. There's so many concepts like apostolic succession or original sin versus being in a state of grace that we can use art to conceptually explain to a vision, but it's not being done. I'm not going to mention other apostolates on here, not Trent's, of course, but I think there are some apostolates who are doing this, but I don't think they're going nearly far enough. So imagine if you had a version of the fathers that was basically explaining how Catholic they are and how they point to the Catholic faith and they tell the Catholic story. I think
we don't want the slanted redeemed Zoomer version.
well, and people can read. So sorry, I don't want to monopolize. So I'll just say we really need, in my opinion, dialectic can only go so far, meaning logic, argument. That's extremely important. It's our highest nature. That's what makes us human. Okay. But maybe this comes from my music side. We need pathos, the emotional side of things. We need to grip people by beauty. That is what the church has done century after century after century. And if you can't get people through that way, you're not going to get people. But what is missing in apologetics is storytelling. And in my opinion, a lot of civilizational scope. Jesus Christ came into the world when 2% of human beings had ever been alive. And since that time, 98% of human beings have been alive. And he came to, when the Roman Empire brought 3 continents together, he brought together the highest of revealed religion, of reason and philosophy and civilization and institutions and law from Rome, Israel, Greece, and Rome. And it created the greatest, not perfect, lots of problems, but the greatest civilization that has ever existed. That's a story we need to tell. And yes, I want people to stop being Protestant. It's a false religion. I want people to come to the Catholic faith, but I don't want to own Protestants. I want to tell Protestants, this is your heritage. I don't know how you can be in favor of Western civilization if you're leaving out 1,500 years plus of it, which most Protestants tend to do. That's kind of how I was raised. So I want an apologetics that is using all the tools we have for beauty in the physical and the digital realm, bringing them together. And I want an apologetics that's fundamentally about telling a story at a civilizational scale. So that's what we're hoping to do.
I knew I should have opened with asking you about eternal Christendom because, dude, this is like, I think the best way to convince people of Catholicism is actually by seeing the church through history, seeing how the church spreads and seeing how God's spirit covers the earth. It's like it comes into this pagan world and God's spirit just subdues the earth. And these, I can't say the S word because we got a strike last time, but these barbarians,
careful,
the barbarians who were performing human sacrifice just get subdued by God's spirit, and Catholicism in its heyday just really transforms the face of the earth. It's such an awesome topic to get into, man.
Well, as a Protestant, I was reading the Church Fathers and I was seeing so many incredible stories about the demonic being battled by Catholic priests, or relics pushing back the demonic, Or, I mean, St. Augustine is using historical apologetics all the time. He's saying to the Jews and the heretics and schismatics, to the Donatists, whatever, guys, this was all prophesied in the Old Testament. You're seeing the pagan altars fall and the Catholic altars go up. Oh, and by the way, there's prophecies of all you heretics and schismatics who are separating from the church as well. You see it in Judah and Israel. You know, and it's an extremely historical storytelling apologetic. And he has this image. He says basically what we've seen is the most powerful leader of the most powerful empire in the history of the world. He's talking about pagan Roman emperors. And they've gone from persecuting Christians to now, by their laws, helping spread the Christian faith. And the most powerful emperor is now kneeling at the tomb of the fisherman in Rome.
Yeah.
These are stories and images that we need to tell people that, whether they like it or not, this is the church and the faith that built the civilization they want to maintain. And unless they get that, they're not going to get Western civilization or anyway. So I could go on, but yeah.
So that was Chris's cryptic tweet the other day, Josh, that he's going to be doing work for you guys.
Oh, did he?
He tweeted something about starting a new big project. So,
no, we haven't talked too much yet. We still have more of a budget to raise, honestly.
Fair enough.
So, but no, we've got a lot of people we're talking to. Have a lot of really impressive people on the advisory board. We just announced Eric Ibarra today. I love Eric.
Is Trent on there? What's going on with Trent? Trent, you on the advisory board or what?
Anthony, we're still talking. I just asked him to say that. Oh my gosh.
I'll get him in there for you, Josh. Don't worry about it.
You're so inappropriate.
Wait. I see Miss B in here. And that reminds me, Trent.
Yeah.
Naivete, not naivete, not naivete.
I forget what I even said in that.
I watched your video and you were talking about the Nala thing and Miss B and you read naivete as naivete. I'm like,
naivete.
no.
That is,
all the people to correct Trent.
We'd love to have Trent on, and we'll see what happens. I deeply admire his work. So we'll see what happens.
You don't want someone with so much naivete as
me. You said it. Nice.
Join.
I'll tell you the Miss B and Nala whole discourse. Like obviously Pearl is just whatever, but whenever I found myself like thinking I had something to add, it would have been something that I would have had to point the mirror at myself so much. Like anything I see that's I would have just been. All of us are struggling with this temptation right now of attention. Like we want to attend. I mean, I have a podcast. I'm trying to get people to see me. And I found myself unable to even have a criticism that I wouldn't be able to lob at myself that I was guilty of. And it's like, if whoever is without sin cast the first stone. And that was really like what struck me about that whole situation. I was like, I can't say anything here because anything I accuse anybody of, I'm 100% guilty of.
No, that's good self-awareness. And that's why I said, like, not everyone has to have a take on everything. And just seeing all that, mostly what I just wanted to have is I'm always just trying to put forward, how do we lower the obstacles and the barriers that keep people from Christ and his church? And if you're going to put up a barrier, if you're going to make something difficult for someone, you better have really overriding evidence that it's necessary for the well-being of others, and not just because you think it's a hot take.
Well, not just that. You have to remember when your conversion happens, how excited you are and how much you want to share that.
Yeah.
Like you just want to share that with people. It's like, how can you expect somebody whose whole life gets transformed? They go from living one way and then they're actually a different person living a different life, and expect them to not want to tell people about it. It's almost an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, it's a double standard too, to be like, oh, these former OnlyFans models, now they're just grifters. They've got a new thing to get attention. But then if you hear, but I feel like a lot of it is, no, you just consider them more detestable than other sinners.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you hear like, there's testimonies from like former gang members or like people are in like British gangs and stuff, and I found Jesus. Now I used to crack people over the head with my and then now I talk about Jesus, like, oh, that's really good, or even like a former Isaac. Or even like a former Protestant pastor who now like teaches theology somewhere, and it like most people aren't like, what a grifter. It's like so it's like you want to just give everybody a fair shake.
Yeah, and give them. Look, I think there probably are. Like, I did like that Miss B told her story in written form, right? I think that there's probably better outlets to do things on, but the Nala thing, it was weird because like she's not even Catholic, and it became such a Catholic conversation. It's like, all right, you know, like I'd much rather hear Miss B's story than Nala's
Yeah.
story. You know what I mean?
But it's new. It's a news item, like a
Yeah.
famous person. Though I think, like, and that's why I said in all my both in my older video on celebrity conversions and in this one, yeah, you should celebrate people, but you should have prudence. Like if someone's a brand new convert, you don't just put them out on the convert speaking tour. Like you gotta
Yeah.
like they need some time to get adjusted.
Josh, didn't somebody give you advice like that?
Yeah, Scott Hahn. I had a number of opportunities to write conversion memoirs right away, and I was leaning against it, but I was excited by it. But I talked with Scott, and he recommended being in the church at least 5 years before doing it, and I think it was some of the best advice I've ever been given. And you have to live the faith; it has to become part of your being. And of course, being a Catholic, that's a process that continues until the day you die. So
yeah, I think I was Catholic for about. I started working at Catholic Answers. I think it was about 11 years after my conversion.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about why me and Rob are cradle Catholics, and that's much better than being a convert. But
That's good.
There's still prayers I can't learn. My wife and her family will say them, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Praise word of the Lord. It's right.
All right. We're going to jump over to logos. I have a lot of ideas.
Amongst, right, Anthony?
It is amongst. If you say among, you're actually not even technically part of the church. So it's blessed art thou amongst women, and anybody who says among, you're actually kind of schismatic. So readjust your prayer life and start saying thou, thy. You can't say blessed are you among women. Mary only hears prayers in Victorian English, and God only hears prayers in Latin. That's the truth.
But
all right, we're gonna sign over. We're gonna go over there. We're gonna get into some of the juicier topics. We will see you guys on Thursday with Jay Dyer. I have Jay Dyer coming on. I'm gonna tell him why he is LARPing as an ortho bro, and he needs to come home to Rome.
Yeah, it's gonna go over real well.
Good luck.
Real well.
Have fun.
All right, you guys stay where you are. We're gonna jump over to the other side.